The holidays can be busy and hectic. So, how do you find time in between shopping, cooking, celebrating, and doing all the things? So, how do you make time to write in the middle of all of that? Is it even possible? I am here to tell you that yes, absolutely it is. And today in this video, you're going to find out how to make time for writing in the middle of the busy holiday season. Welcome to today's Live with Lisa. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and I create videos that help you learn how to write and live God's way. If you want to honor God with both your life and your writing, this is the place for you. Every week, we go live in partnership with Our Given Purpose Ministries, which is an incredible ministry founded by my dear friend, Tori Slaughter, to help you grow in your walk with God and to get connected to godly community every week. So not only can you watch today's live on YouTube and Instagram, but on the Our Given Purpose Ministries Facebook page as well. So make sure you get connected there and learn more about that ministry. So, as I said, the holiday season is busy. It is full of so many different things. We have so many obligations between friends and family and hosting and celebrating and all the different things that come with the Christmas season and everything that's involved with that. And it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming for a lot of people, especially for many of us who may be introverts as writers. I know for me, I definitely have my moments where the socializing can be a bit much, right? And so in the middle of all of that, how do we find time to write? How do we set aside that time? Is it possible to do that? Should we do that? That's what we're going to be discussing today. So I want to start out, the first point I want to make in terms of how you can make time to write during the busy holiday season. Point number one is to ask God in prayer what he wants you to work on during this time of year. Ask God in prayer what he wants you to work on during this time of year. I love this verse. Psalm 127, verse 1 says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain." And Tori Slaughter actually did a powerful teaching and Bible study on this verse and on several verses in Psalms 127. I believe it was yesterday during Divine Alignment. So make sure you check out that message and that teaching. Really powerful in terms of really digging deep into these verses. But I really think it's applicable for us, even in terms of our writing and thinking about really every aspect of our lives. If God is not at the forefront, if he is not the one leading and guiding us, and we're not looking to him for for direction and for clarity about what we need to do and when we need to do it, we are kind of wasting our time. And that's what this verse is saying, that we need to allow God to build our house, so to speak, build the house of our lives. And that absolutely applies to writing. I like to say that we don't need to be writing whatever it is that we want to write and then inviting God to just co-sign on it. No, he needs to be the one giving the vision, the clarity, and the direction for what we write and how we move forward with it. And that is can be especially true during the holiday season, because we have so many different obligations, many of us, and so many things that we're doing. And so if we're not careful, we can just go through the motions of things and just start writing just because we think we're supposed to. But we need to stop and check ourselves and ask God in prayer, do you even want me to be doing this at this particular time of year? What is it that you do want me to focus on at this time of year? And we want to make sure that our goals always align with his will. And so does God even want you to focus on writing a particular project during this particular season? Does he want you to rest instead and take some time to really just sit with him and hear next steps about the next season you're going into? Or does he want you to focus on writing, but maybe pull back a little bit and spend a little bit less time writing than you have in previous seasons? Or does he want you just to go all in and he's giving you the okay to do that? Regardless of what the instruction is, we need to take time to sit in prayer and really hear from him and make sure we're clear before we move forward. We want to make sure we're not assuming things and just jumping in, right? That is so important that we do that. All right. Tori says, yes, unless the Lord builds the house, yes, we build with him. Amen. Amen. That is exactly the point. We build with God and we don't just try to drag him into our plans. Absolutely. And yes, God should not be our cosigner. Woo! Listen, that right there. How many of you have tried to make God your cosigner and it failed miserably? Okay. Yes. Not just me. Yes, absolutely have been there and it did not go well. So we don't want to do that, right? Absolutely. All right. And so the next step in this process is to keep things simple and realistic. Keep things simple and realistic when it comes to writing during the holidays. It is possible, I believe, to get a lot more done than you think you can during the holiday season. Just because it's busy doesn't mean you can't also be productive. But it is important to be realistic about your individual situation and your commitments. What does your calendar look like? What commitments do you have? What kind of family situation are you in? What does your work situation look like? All of those things are going to be factors in how we make time to write. And we need to make sure that we're taking all of that into consideration. Something that's really frustrating is if you try to just make plans and you're not thinking about what else is going on at the time. And then you get frustrated because those plans don't pan out the way you thought you would. A better strategy is to look at your calendar, think about your obligations, and think about what's going on in your life at the time and really make adjustments and plans from there, right? Do you have a big family, for example? And if you do, are they staying with you, right? That can be a big factor in how much writing you get done. But it can also work in your favor. You may be able to ask some family members to maybe, babysit your children or spend some time with them so you can have some extra time to write. You may need to just get used to having to work with some background noise going on, right? Kids running back and forth or, people shouting because the big game's on or whatever, right? And so you just may have to make those kind of adjustments of just life, right? And it's not something that we need to shy away from or be afraid of. But again, we're just factoring all of that into the equation. It's important to do that. If work is busier than usual, another example, maybe you're having to put in more hours than you might do at other times of the year, then you may need to make some adjustments in terms of your expectations, or maybe you work late a couple nights and see if you can fit in some writing that way, or maybe you pull a couple of early mornings. But either way, it requires you to look at your schedule and be willing to make adjustments, and that's important. But also, don't be afraid to simplify. It may be that you have to think about your goals differently. Maybe instead of trying to reach a certain word count, maybe you're looking at just kind of working on the actual ideas in your book instead. Maybe that's what you have the bandwidth for. And so maybe the type of work that you're doing on a writing project needs to shift and change, right? So these are kind of the things I want you thinking about when you're thinking about writing during this particular season. Look for ways to not just make excuses and say, oh, I don't have time to write, but look at how you can write differently and how you can make adjustments and possibly scale back or simplify what you're doing instead. So I think that will be really helpful for you. All right. Tori says, my goodness, learning to adjust to life being flexible with the background noise. That part just pulled me together. Amen, Tori. I hope it, I feel the same way, right? I've gone through that as well. And just thinking about how to write and create and be creative and do what God has called you to do in the middle of the background noise, even if it's good life happening. It can be a challenge, but I believe that God gives us the grace to do that. And we just have to sometimes think outside the box about what that looks like. Amen. So the next point, the next bit of advice is to embrace short writing sessions. Embrace short writing sessions. I think that we can underestimate how much we can get done in little chunks of writing time over a long period of time. Don't underestimate how much you can get done in those little 15 to 20-minute sessions. That time adds up over time. And so if you're feeling pressed for time, if you have a lot of commitments, if you have a lot going on, try to squeeze in some of those short little writing bursts throughout your day, if you can. Because again, I think you'll be surprised over a couple of weeks or a month or two, you'll be surprised how much those little snippets of time will really add up, and you'll be able to make more progress than you might have imagined, and certainly more progress than if you had just done nothing at all. So definitely make sure that you're looking for those little moments of time throughout your day, and make sure that you are taking full advantage of those. All right. The next thing we want to do is to communicate your goals and your needs with your loved ones. Communicate your writing goals and your needs with your loved ones. So this may involve things like I said earlier, maybe asking its extended family members to maybe babysit and spend some time with your kids so that you can get a little bit more extra writing time in. It may require, you just communicating and letting them know, hey, I'm not going to be able to go to all of the family functions this year. Maybe you pick, one or two, or the really big ones, and maybe you're able to go to those, and maybe some of the smaller things you might need to miss out on, or maybe you're just letting them know that you can come, but you can't stay for as long, things like that. Again, we're looking at ways to adjust for the season and adjust the things that are going on, and taking all of that into account. Many times I have found that, depending on your family, right? Sometimes family may not be as supportive and may not, be as enthusiastic about your writing, and that's a different conversation. But assuming your family is, on your side and they really want to help you, and they are excited about what you're doing, you can communicate the goals that you have with them, and bring them into your process, and let them know, this is what I'm working on, and I'd really like to spend some extra time, trying to meet this goal over the next few weeks, and this is what that could look like. Would you be willing to help with that? Would you be willing to, give me a little extra space to work on that? A lot of people will be more supportive and will be helpful in terms of you meeting those goals if two things are in place. Number one, you're honest and upfront about what you're doing, right? If you a lot of times just having a conversation with people just want to know what's going on. They see you disappearing for hours at a time, and it looks like you're antisocial. It looks like you don't really want to be bothered, and that can send a different message than what you were thinking. But if you're upfront and you say, hey, I've got this thing going on, I might be in and out, but I'll be here, as much as I can, then people might be more reasonable and more understanding. So they're looking for you to be honest and upfront about what you're doing. And then the second thing is, if they know that the commitment is temporary, if they know that you're trying to meet a goal, and they know that you're working hard on that, and you're pressing forward to make it through that process, and they know it's not going to be, for the next 50 years that you're working, at this level of intensity, right? Especially if you're trying to really get something done, and you have a deadline, or you're trying to get through some edits or whatever it is. If it's an intense process of writing that you're going through, people a lot of times are willing to be accommodating if they know that it's not going to go on forever in this exact way. I hope that makes sense. So if they understand that the commitment is temporary and you're honest about it, people can oftentimes be more willing to make adjustments and to really help you and support you with what you're doing. All right, let's go into the comments here. All right. Good afternoon, Melinda. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this live is helpful for all of you that are watching. So thank you so much for being here. All right. And Tori says that's such a great time to start branching out into the groups and also setting boundaries with family. And you said, I know you have a masterclass on this as well. Yes. Thank you so much, Tori. Yes. And that is so important for us in terms of boundaries and setting boundaries with family and being willing to let people know, hey, this is important to me. This is something I'm going to be working on. And you can absolutely do that in a really, kind and loving way, but just letting them know, hey, I'm going to be working on this writing project and I might be in and out of the different, gatherings we're having, it doesn't tend to go as well if you miss out on everything. Right. But, just kind of letting them know what you have going on and just being upfront and honest about it. That is definitely an exercise in setting some boundaries, and it can be helpful. It can be, a good growing experience to go through that. So I know what that is like, and it definitely can work out well when you're doing that. So definitely want to encourage you as far as that goes. All right. And then lastly, I want to say this to give yourself grace for the season. Give yourself grace for the season. The holidays are a unique time of year. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of emotions going on and feelings going on. Sometimes it can be a time of joy and excitement and celebration with family and friends and loved ones. But there could also be some grief mixed in there, right? Some of us who have lost loved ones and are dealing with that grief, and it can be especially intense at this time of year as well. And so people can be navigating a lot of different things, and all of that impacts us when we're trying to write and create in the middle of that. And so, it's important to recognize that this is a unique time of year. There's a lot that people are dealing with. There's a lot that you may be dealing with, and there's surprise visits from family that you weren't expecting, and things like cooking experiments gone wrong, and all these different things that are happening, even just exhaustion from socializing more than usual. All of that plays into this. All of this has an effect on us as people, as writers, as kingdom people, people trying to honor God with our lives. All of it plays a part. And so it's important to stay flexible and be willing to adjust your schedule as necessary. Again, seek God for wisdom early on in the process about what he wants you to do and what he doesn't want you to do. If he's telling you to rest, do that. If he's telling you to step back a little bit and maybe not write as much, do that. If he's telling you that he's giving you the grace to move forward and to get a lot done, then do that and be obedient to that. But regardless, recognize that there's a lot going on, and it's okay to give yourself grace for that. It's okay to recognize that things may be different. Things may happen that you're not expecting. Things may come up, and maybe some things don't work out the way you were expecting. And all of that is okay, as long as you are, again, seeking God, putting him first, and doing the best you can to walk in his will. He promises to be with you and to give you the grace for what he has called you to do. And really also, I want to encourage you just to have fun, to remember that writing for God is a blessing. It is not a burden. It's not meant to be a burden. And Jesus is the reason for this season, absolutely, as always. I talked about that, especially in my last live stream last week, about Advent season and how it is wonderful to be called to be a writer during this season, and how we can actually bring our celebration of Advent into our writing process. And so definitely go back and watch last week's live stream to get an understanding of what that really means about writing during this Advent season of celebrating the birth of Jesus. But also with this week, understand that the busyness of the season is normal. We all go through it. And just to give yourself that extra grace for that, be willing to be flexible, be willing to celebrate, be willing to invite the joy of the Lord into this process. And I believe that you will honor him when you do that, and you will experience the joy and the peace of the season when you do that. Any writing that we do should always be to honor and glorify God. And when we invite him into the process in this season and in every season, we are going to experience the joy, the peace, and the fulfillment of doing that. So I pray that this live was a blessing for you today. Let's go into the comments one more time. All right, Melinda says, great tips and reminders. Communication is key. It really is, Melinda. When we're willing to communicate with the people we love, we can't control everything. They may not always respond the way we hope that they would, but I've found that many times people do, and many times people are willing to adjust, and we might be surprised. And either way, regardless of how other people respond, we have the responsibility to communicate, to set boundaries when necessary, and to ultimately be obedient to what God has called us to do. So I pray that today's live blessed you today. I pray that it encouraged you as you go forward into this season, as you're continuing to celebrate and plan and go through all the things with family and friends. I pray that you are encouraged to make some time for writing as well as the Lord leads you. And I pray that what He is able to do in you and through you during this season will be a blessing not only to you, but to everyone else who is impacted by it. So thank you again for joining me. If you found this video helpful and you want to learn more about how to write and live God's way, go ahead and subscribe. Make sure that you do that and share this video with a writer you know who could use some encouragement. So that is it for today's live stream. I will see you this time next week in the next Live with Lisa. And until next time, take care and God bless. Happy writing, y'all.